Mostly a new audience, that's good. Good friend of mine, August Esposito, is the one that normally does this. He did the entire presentation you're about to see. I added a few things, but for the most part, he is the pioneer of this entire program that we're trying to give you guys and get some feedback on. And what we really want to do is go over just some of the stuff that we're working on, and I don't want this to be a lecture of any kind or seem as if I'm trying to tell you guys that we have all the answers, because we do not have all the answers. We think that all the answers are going to come from you guys. I myself have only been in the industry for maybe a year now. I'm a fresh fish. And the combined experience in this room is really what we want to make the decisions going forward with a lot of this stuff. IR Electric is mainly with our, when it comes to crematories, retorts, and the future of electric cremation in the United States, more green initiatives. That's mainly what that's about. We'll get a little bit more into that. But the main point of the presentation is to look at some of the stuff that we're doing with Rainbox VR and virtual reality going forward. So we started with Implant Recycling as the main company, and we started in 2009 doing the post-cremation metal recycling. That evolved into getting a service company, which is sort of just under the umbrella of Implant Recycling. We provide a machine that mechanically separates all the metals after the cremation process, making it a lot easier for operators. And that's really our main revenue stream and how we are able to do all the things that we're doing now. And the big part of that is all the revenue that we get back, we really want to put back into the funeral industry. That's like a really, really important part of how we do things. My Heart, Your Heart is probably the best program we do. I actually, before I started with Implant Recycling, got to be a part, sort of by proxy, with My Heart, Your Heart. We did an art project in the Philippines related to it. But My Heart, Your Heart is essentially the recycling of pacemakers in the United States. As many of you probably know, pacemakers can't be reused in the United States after they've been removed from somebody, but we work with the University of Michigan in order to recycle those pacemakers, test them for battery life and function, and be able to ship them to third world countries that need this sort of help. And with My Heart, Your Heart, we've already saved over 1,000 lives. So that's a really cool thing that we do. And that's the owner, Bradley Wasserman, with a pacemaker recipient in Macabebe, Philippines. So who am I? This is probably a very important part of the conversation. I'm probably the youngest person in here, maybe. I'm 26 years old. I was born in 98, so I am a Gen Zer, one of those Gen Zers that John was talking about earlier. That's me. And I was raised in Judeo-Christian background, sort of non-denominational. Greg, you were talking a little bit about that when it comes to religion and how people are brought up, how people want their memorialization to go. A lot of that is contingent of who they're brought up with and what religion they are. Probably controversial. I wouldn't regard myself as having religious beliefs, probably at least in the sense that many consider religious beliefs. I'd probably use the word spiritual, which is very tossed around, especially in my generation, but I'm not disconnected from the transcendent, and I still have a lot of those beliefs. I am engaged. I have an 8-month-old son. Today's actually his 8-month-old. It's today, which is pretty awesome. I value tradition, and I'm open to change. I forget exactly who was talking about that earlier, but of course, change is a super important thing that we're trying to make sure that we can move forward and adapt to a lot of these technologies. But we don't want to lose that tradition and that human touch, as we've talked about a little bit today. Of course, my favorite time spent, probably like most of you, with my wife, my son, my friends, family. I think that's the thing that all of us can relate to and is something that can't be lost. So, some key points, just a sort of summary of what we're going to get into here. Uh, Probably the biggest thing that needs to be stressed here is that this is not a this is not a substitute of replacing traditional ceremonies. That's not what we're trying to do here. We want to give a different option, maybe for some people, be able to adapt these technologies in a good way, a way that we can all be a part of, and use those to move us forward in the right direction as opposed to the wrong direction. Next one, this technology is coming, whether you like it or not. A lot of it is already here, as I'm about to show you a little bit later during the cocktail hour. You'll be able to see in the demo that we've already come a long way, and it's only going to get better and better. And there's really no stopping it. So it's something that we've got to know is coming and be able to adapt to and take on. We hold a very strong opinion that now is the time to ensure these technologies are delivered through the caring hands of our industry. Like I was saying, all of the experience in this room, the knowledge in this room alone, uh, is something we need to have when we're discussing and talking about these technologies and how they're going to impact our industry. They're already impacting the world, but as it relates to our industry, we need to just make sure that we're able to have a say. We don't want Silicon Valley to come in later and use this technology in the wrong way, to potentially harm families and how they deal with grief. So it's very important that really what this presentation is that this room is able to have a conversation. So at any time or point during this presentation, you see something where you're like, Austin, that's crazy. We cannot have that. Or you see something you think is a good idea, feel free to shout out. You're not going to hurt my feelings. If you guys want to say anything, I want this to be more of a conversation. Like I said, it's not a lecture. I'm not trying to teach you guys really anything other than the fact that the technology is coming, what kind of technology, and how it's going to make an impact potentially in our industry. So those are some key points I just want to keep in mind while we're going through all of this. So the state of the industry now, a lot really hasn't changed, at least crazy changes. Our industry is pretty slow to adapt when it comes to technological innovations. We've talked a lot about today already, direct cremation, alternative cremations, these things. Witness cremations, live streaming was mentioned a little bit earlier. These are some ways where this technology is it's making its entrance, but it is very slow to get there. And we really just need to see how this technology is going to adapt and how we're going to make the most of it before it can, like I said, come out of any Silicon Valley or be used in the wrong way. Customer management systems, loss of important rituals, that has been a fairly discussed topic. As we said, using the cardboard boxes, that's a way that is maybe not the best way when you're trying to put dignity after somebody has passed. You definitely want to make sure that different practices can be adopted so that we know that people do care about their loved ones. And putting them, like you said, in cardboard boxes or the plastic cremation containers, especially with the rise of cremation as a whole, you don't want to lose that dignity for people. People not planning for the future. Greg, you talked a little bit about this too, just in the numbers when it comes to pre-need and that steady state between older generations, baby boomers, and the silent generation. But people my age, maybe it's never been that way. But maybe with some of the technologies that we're going to see here, which is why I asked that question of you of younger generations being more involved, maybe this will have an impact on how anybody, no matter what age you are, is able to think about themselves not being here and leaving something behind. So many believe families have chosen simpler, quicker methods of disposition for their loved ones. And I guess the main question here is, and what I kind of want to hear from you guys is, do we think this is because they don't care? Is the rise in cremation, um, the lower cost of cremation, maybe convenience? Are these some aspects? Do you have any? Yeah.
So in our area,
Huh.
burials have gone up. The actual, spaces.
Right.
So I think real estate has gone up, and you can't find a place.
Gotcha. So real estate and
Almost $10,000 just for opening, clothing, and a nice bait.
right. So there's some of that probably potentially cost, even being a big contributing factor. Do you have something as well?
Things like inflation and also got to deal with inflation as well. The cost of various set great.
Right. Absolutely.
Down all.
Right. Which is the rise. Direct cremation is usually, of course, a lot cheaper. Greg?
Sometimes they have to come down to propane or we had my father-in-law passed away. It was unexpected, and with Friday man, his grandson was getting ready to graduate. There's a couple of what's going on. So he was cremated. He didn't want to be cremated to get ready to
Right. Convenience. And that's a huge one too. All of those factors. Sorry, go ahead.
Control, allowing a family to have more control over what happens. So often families will take their loved one to the cemetery and bury them. My grandmother died 30 years ago. I've been to the cemetery once. She was placed there. My family doesn't go there, but when we do cremation, we're allowed to place a little bit of that person in an urn and wear them around her neck. We
Right.
have an urn on the fireplace mantle. My sister wants to be cremated and turned into stone. So I think cremation is not necessarily about cause. It's about different ways to remember that person. I can carry cremated remains with me where I can't carry a deceased.
Excellent point. Yeah, I love that point. More variety, more choice, perhaps, in the way that you can adapt memorialization and in all these different ways to your family. Yeah, that's beautiful. We completely agree. It's not because they don't care. At Rainbox VR and IR Electric, we do not believe the general population is apathetic towards death and funerals. Rather, the format needs modernization that includes a more environmentally conscious approach and an integration of immersive technologies. So that idea that people just don't care, it's just not true. People have always cared and they always will about their loved ones, and nothing's going to change that. Inflation, cost, convenience, all these things can play a factor. But overall, going forward with Rainbox VR, we really believe that you just need, as you said, a sort of variety of options in a way to memorialize your loved ones that can live on through generations. So what does this mean? An environmentally conscious approach and integration of immersive technologies will address the key areas we believe can change the scope of cremation. That has a lot to do with IR Electric and the electric retorts that we've had some discussions about, and getting that to the United States, having that environmental impact alongside the bamboo, which is I did not know that, and the other stuff that you were talking about, Darren. Convenience, active participation, and probably the most important, engagement and meaning. With smaller pendants or things that you can carry around, that's something that gives you meaning every single day. With a direct cremation, maybe you don't even get those remains back, or a lot of people may not have family in that sense, and are completely forgotten, or family that just can't make the cost to even do a pendant or something as small as you would think for that. But people care, their engagement and meaning is tremendously important. And with the virtual reality services that could be offered by funeral homes, that can give them this long-lasting digital, in the cloud, never going to go away memorialization that you wouldn't have otherwise. So how we change, talked about this a little, green practices, automation, that was a great one from John. He talked a lot about that. That's going to change many practices in the industry, not just electric cremation, but that's what we're going to go into a little bit here. And digitalization, which is the aspect of the virtual reality. So families going green regulations having a huge impact on this. We actually have a mock electric retort that we bring to NFDA. I have people walk by all the time from California that are ready to buy it up immediately right then and there. They're asking where to sign, but it's just not a thing yet in the United States. We've had a lot of talks as far as when this stuff is going to take hold and how we can get there, but it's just not there yet. But regulations could be a huge role to play. The state will have a lot of things to say about that. Alternative cremation, this helps a little bit environmentally. With the aquamation, some of that stuff is a little bit better, or using even bamboo containers and having that small, just barely smaller effect. Environmentally guided decision making. Of course, we talked about that. So control panels, and this is something that would be more involved with our electric, but these are some changes you can start making immediately with your existing crematories. They don't have to be electric. The monitors that control oxygen, reduce the use of gas, real-time adjustments, reduce emissions, and standardizing operations. And here's a sort of example of what one of those control panels could look like. And it's the smallest implication of things, even implicating an AI that can learn your patterns. And there's that automation again, understand how you work your crematory, how often you do cremations. You can see here, preheating 16 minutes, just before 8 o'clock, you're about to come in. You can have that up and ready to go. You can input the age, so the bone density, all that sort of stuff can apply. This machine control panel can then take that and help you reduce your emissions and make your machine as efficient as you possibly can. So this is some of the ideas about electric cremation, heated with electricity, combustion controlled with oxygen. So in this sort of machine, you'd really just use oxygen to determine the burn rate and the power use of the machine. And then the body itself would be the fuel. So you're not using any fossil fuels or anything to heat it up. Powered by the grid, supplemented with solar. Essentially, if you have the roof space, you can get panels to be able to help your consumption of energy. But even if it's cloudy out, you're still connected to the grid. You use that grid's energy, and then when it's sunny again, you're able to sell that energy back to the grid, sort of like a discount on your electric bill, so to speak. Less emissions due to the removal of fossil fuels, of course. Less cost, technology continues to advance. I always say good technology is getting cheaper, and cheap technology is getting better. And that's been the status quo for forever. And it's going to be the same exact thing with electric cremation and the virtual reality, as we'll come to see. Artificial intelligence and machine learning, we talked about that, and I know someone's going to talk about it tomorrow. I don't know why that's messed up, but that's the concept idea of what the electric cremator is, scientifically supposed to look at. Yeah, of course.
That this is something that's in the future and it's not practical, not practical. I was confused. Is the bar regulation, or is the bar
Right. I got you. So really the bar is, I can't say technology, because electric cremation is being used. It's been used in India for a very long time, since the 80s. It's being used in Europe in small amounts. I know FT is coming out with a hybrid that sort of uses both to try to help your emissions in that regard. But as far as bringing it to the United States market, that's as far. We had the mock cremator at NFDA to sort of garner opinions as to where people are in the States and how this could be adopted. But as far as getting it to the States, everything I've learned is that it just doesn't make sense. With the battery technology and technology in all aspects is sort of where it's lacking behind, at least for the American market. But I will admit I'm no well of knowledge when it comes to that regard. So, but thank you for that. So we can leverage technology to serve our customers. John talked a lot about this. I won't go too deep into this, but until now, the funeral industry has few effective tools to address these changing needs. We can serve today's families with new and innovative solutions that allow us to survive or to serve new desires and reinstill the importance of traditional rituals. And that part is very important. Again, as John said, you're never going to take away the human connection, the human touch when it comes to these things. That's not what you're trying to do. This stuff is supposed to help you and maybe even grow that human connection in a way that you couldn't before, because a lot of your human connection power reserve was going towards all the automated stuff you had to do, maybe paperwork and stuff like that. We can hopefully leave to the automated and then be able to use that well of resources and your own human connectivity to be completely dedicated to that. So immersive technology, how does it play into this? Artificial intelligence, like I said, we're going to go over that tomorrow. I know someone's going to speak a little bit more on that. But automation will make cremation safer, more efficient with less mistakes, just like that control panel. Hopefully reduce emissions, just make it smarter so that you don't have to worry about it so much. Learns more and more with every single cremation, adjusts in real time. So augmented reality, anybody ever deal with any augmented reality? I'm sure you have. If you've ever bought a coffee maker on Amazon, they even have a button now where you can put up your phone to your counter and you see the coffee maker there on the counter in real life, almost get the dimension sort of size to it. The example here is obviously Pokemon Go, a game where you'd walk around and see Pokemon sort of in your real environment. But this is just a superimposed computer-generated image over the user's view of the real world. So this will change service in the future, and I was surprised to hear somebody talk about this as well. But immediate assistance worldwide and practical everyday applications. That immediate assistance part, though, is important to many aspects of our industry. If you're sending a service technician, you buy the hotel, you buy the plane ticket, you do all this to get someone out there you just need to plug it in. Like something as simple as that. Or maybe even more complicated, where someone could have these goggles or even on their phone be able to do a more intricate version of FaceTime, essentially, where you can have someone use augmented reality to pinpoint exactly what they need to do, what they need to change, or how they need to fix the machine in an easier, practical way. HoloLens aboard the Orion spacecraft. So this is actually really cool. I feel like you would find this pretty interesting. So Microsoft has a sort of version of VR goggles called HoloLens, and the technology was used to help assemble the Lockheed Martin Orion spacecraft. This is the new command module that's going to send astronauts to the moon into low Earth orbit. It's going to be the new sort of main spacecraft that they used, and working on it with the HoloLens essentially gives you that augmented or mixed reality to be able to see 2D or 3D schematics over a 2D interface. So you're able to pack a lot more information in and be able to work in real time with this technology to help you do calculations or see what fits where and have all of these sort of aspects in helping you create such a complex machine as an Orion spacecraft. Cool stuff. So augmented possibilities, real-time response worldwide, fewer mistakes, faster repairs, service maintenance, crematory layovers. Just like I was saying, instead of sending a technician, to another state, you'll have this opportunity to be able to put on some VR glasses and be able to know exactly what needs to be fixed and have that option. So virtual reality, this is really where we're going to spend most of our time. The computer generated simulation of a three-dimensional image or environment that can be interacted with in a seemingly real or physical way by a person using special electronic equipment or the VR goggles. So this puts you in a completely immersive environment. Some people even get motion sickness because it's so real, or feels that way at least, and you can be completely immersed and completely inside of a world created either by yourself or a game or many other different possibilities. This will enable last-minute visits, never before possible, with special cameras. You'll see this a little bit later too. You can film and see these things in virtual reality, even a loved one that maybe you can't get to, a terminally ill or some aspect of that nature. You'll be able to make that last-minute visit and almost feel as if you're there in the moment. Provides the ability to customize every aspect of ceremonies and celebrations. Terry went over this beautifully. Customization, I think, is the future in everything. People always want more customization. The more you have, the better the consumer is going to adapt to it and want to do it and want to use it. Here's a sort of example of something that is pretty cool. Sit back on your couch at home and feel as if you're courtside or field side at your favorite sports team's games. Just some of the possibilities that this stuff will be able to unlock. Yeah.
About the individual. When you're talking about this, are you talking about more so I can virtually be there within the deceased 20 pass, or?
So it's kind of both, and we'll get into that second one. Mainly is with the memorialization aspect of some of the virtual reality, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But being able to be there is sort of what I was mentioning just then, sort of being there with your loved one. Tony, you got some? Oh, it's okay.
I'm starting to see commercials released. This is like a Christmas event.
Right.
They were showing how you take your phone and put yourself in a movie theater around your phone. So instead of looking like you're watching a movie on your phone, it's like it looks like you're sitting in a theater. And that's that picture.
Right. I know the exact. Well, yes, we talked about this. I know the exact one you're referencing. And we're about to go through some of the goggles here in a second to look at. Here it is. So this is the MetaQuest 2. The MetaQuest 3 is what you're mentioning. It's the one that most recently dropped. And the main thing with that device is probably one of the biggest hurdle with a lot of this stuff is cost. It's always going to be cost. But the MetaQuest 3, its lowest version and one of the most technologically advanced versions they have, even over the Pro that I have right here, is going to retail at $300. So that's cheaper than your smartphones. That's cheaper than a lot of things in your life. And given the things that you can do with this sort of technology, things you can adapt, it's absolutely going to be one of these things that is going to take over, and future generations are going to get their hands on and become more and more involved with this kind of technology, how it works, how it can be utilized. And not just in our industry, but every industry everywhere. So that's a cheap, sort of affordable version. And the MetaQuest 3, also cheap, but by no means inconsequentially technologically advanced. This is the MetaQuest Pro. This is what we'll use out there. This is sort of their flagship, I guess you could say, as far as the technology exists right now. And you'll see a lot more of that later. Apple Vision, they just dropped a new one. I'm sure. How many of you guys have heard of this? I'm assuming a lot of you have iPhones, right? Raise your hand if you have an iPhone. Where are my Android people at? Yeah, there you go. But yeah, Apple. So when they release something, it's going to be very immersed in their own ecosystem, which is probably the biggest thing that Apple has as far as a hold on its customers, is that their ecosystem is just so user-friendly, so easy to understand and use. And this is no different. This is going to be something that you can use on a regular day basis, and that can also be connected to the devices you already have. I love this one. This is like the coolest thing about it. You can literally see your own Mac display. You just open your Mac and you can have 5 windows open all at once, and do work like that. There's the HoloLens we were talking about a little earlier. So this is a sort of medium of immersed computer generation environments, but with elements of the real world still involved. So you can see through them, and see your real world, but it has a sort of overlay to be able to help you with whatever you're doing in the real world. This is something we can see using to help people when they're working on their retorts, or that sort of service aspect of helping people in the future with some of their equipment. Here's another example of that. Learning in schools. This could be a very big leap forward as far as helping with comprehension for a lot of students. So, augmented, I would say, is a lesser version of the mixed. The mixed is probably, it's like a medium between the augmented, where it may just be one thing, is how you maybe describe something augmented, like the coffee maker from Amazon, and just seeing what it looks like. You'd probably classify that as just augmented. But if the coffee maker, had things coming off it, and was showing you how to use it, and all this stuff was still being used, I'd probably call that mixed, because it has a lot more information over your reality. But honestly, there's really not too much of a difference. It's just the amount of information you're seeing, I'd say. So the metaverse. Where will the metaverse be in 2035? VR and AR hardware and software will reach ubiquitous status, like that glass screen in your pocket right now. I asked you guys how many have iPhone, Samsung, but nobody in here is going to raise their hand and say they don't have a smartphone. Are you? Is there anybody here without a smartphone? Didn't think so. And the smartphone is, it's new. 2008, I think, was the first iPhone. Wasn't ubiquitous then. People slowly started to adapt, and now, if you don't have one, you're basically cast from society. There's so many things that you can't do. Everything is integrated to your smartphone. Your plane tickets, your tickets to the baseball game, Tony. All of that sort of stuff is, if you don't have a smartphone, you sort of get left in the dust. And we do believe that this will be a sort of factor when it comes to these VR goggles. Now, yes, they're all big and clunky. Their battery life's an hour. There's drawbacks to them now, but there's drawbacks to the first iPhone. And like I said, good technology is getting cheap. Cheap technology is getting good. And we're always going to be moving forward. This stuff is not taking a break anytime soon. Every single year you have a new device that's able to do something new, and smaller battery, better display, what have you. This stuff is going to move forward. And we think that these goggles, maybe in the future, they're as slim as reading glasses, and you just put them on and they completely change your environment. But this sort of technology will take hold and be a huge part of our society going forward. So the metaverse-based collaboration will be a common feature of office work, much as Zoom is for communications today. Business will evolve, accommodating work from home. There's so much of that, especially after COVID. Imagine you doing your Zoom meeting. Apple is a great example of this, where it can literally show your face now, and you can look to the side and speak directly to somebody in a meeting, or even lean over and whisper, and the person next to you can hear you, but the other people in the office can't. So this sort of technology is going to get good, and it's going to help us work and do meetings and support communication. And then the do it with me, we went over that. So what is the metaverse? Defining the metaverse: a virtual 3D immersive environment where you can explore virtual worlds, interact, consume media, meet and communicate with others, attend dedicated meetings and events, be creative, learn, play games, or just even experience your own customized reality, whatever you want. You go in there, especially if you're a programmer, you can adapt it to be anything your world desires. You put on the headset, keep it plugged in, and just live in your house forever and never interact with the real world. So I know some of you are already thinking, this stuff's a little scary. It's a little scary when you sit down, you kind of think about it, am I Neo? What's going on here? How is this a good thing? Many aspects of this can be extraordinarily dangerous, and how are we going to contend with that power, that sort of technology? And I'd say it was sort of answered by this gentleman here. This name is Richard Feynman. He was a physicist from the 40s, 50s, worked on the Manhattan Project, Nobel Prize winner. And in the meaning of it all, he has a quote that sort of is relevant to what we're talking about today. And substituting science for technology in the following quote is going to be very relevant. So I'm just going to put it up here and read it to you guys, and I want to get your thoughts afterwards. So he says, "Is science of any value? I think the power of something is to do something is of value. Whether the result is a good thing or a bad thing depends on how it is used, but the power is of value." He goes on to say that once in Hawaii, I was taken to see a Buddhist temple. In the temple, the man said, "I'm going to tell you something that you will never forget." And then he said, "To every man is given the key to the gates of heaven. The same key opens the gates of hell." And so it is with science or technology. In a way, it is a key to the gates of heaven, and the same key opens the gates of hell. And we do not have any instructions as to which is which gate. Shall we throw away the key and never have a way to enter the gates of heaven? Or shall we struggle with the problem of which is the best way to use the key? That is, of course, a very serious question, but I think we cannot deny the value of the key to the gates of heaven. Pretty cool quote. Of course, he was talking about something a little bit more scary than maybe virtual reality. I think we all kind of know what he's talking about there. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
I mean, it's like you shouldn't be scared of what the future might hold, and you shouldn't hold back on that.
Yeah, step up and be able to get involved and make sure that we're going to open heaven's gate. Nobody wants to open the gates of hell. But as we'll see, there's ways to use this technology where that's exactly what you could do in any technology. But this is one that I think can scare a lot of people, and especially in our industry when we're talking about memorialization and how we're maybe losing that human touch. Nobody wants to lose that, and it's very important that we don't. But as I said earlier, this stuff is not going anywhere. It's coming. Yeah, my Game of Thrones fans. This stuff, it's coming. And if you have nothing to say on it, then it's going to trample you. And if you have nothing to contribute, it's going right over you. You're going to be left in the dust. That's the main point of this whole conversation is I'm trying to see how you guys react to this sort of technology, and know that this is not a replacement of traditional services, but a supplement through the modern technology. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, absolutely. So the analogy I'd probably make is, we're living a lot indoors, and maybe, we don't see the sun as much. And so you take a supplement of vitamin D to keep your immune system good. I'd sort of relate the coming technology and using it as sort of like that vitamin D supplement. We don't want you to never see the sun again. The sun is still important. You got to go outside in the same way that you've got to interact with human beings. It's just a part of who we are. But due to the changing world, people are just inside a lot, and you want to get as much supplementation as you can, stay as healthy as possible. And that's kind of how we see this technology moving forward. We don't want to replace traditional ceremonies or human gathering, but we want to find a way where we can incorporate this technology in the right way, because I'm about to show you there is a wrong way.
정말 생각했어? 맨날 배야 많이 보고 싶었어. 엄마도 나 보고 싶었어. 나 미쳐리 있었어? 몸에 나야지 보고 싶었어.
I'll stop it there. Any thoughts? This is where I get the conversation going. What do you think of that? Do you want that? Who wants that?
That's just scream.
You like that? So in this virtual reality sense, you'd love to be able to interact with your loved one again. So this is it's a tough thing. You know, maybe some people do want that. I hate to put you under the bus, because of course you're inclined to your opinion, and I can see the value in it 100%. Can we hear from someone who doesn't like it? Why is that bad? Yes.
It sounds like that, but then ultimately, I think what you would end up is a person that's stuck in that reality and can't let go.
Right.
And you don't want to move on because that's where you're.
Right. Not being able to move on. Yes.
I think this technology would be good only in the sense of being used by the state and jobs are really therapists heavily regulated to ensure that a person is falling in.
Yeah. Are you saying that this using it like that should be used in a therapeutic setting, but it should still be used sort of similar to that?
Just to help somebody process their grief, especially if it's a traumatic grief, such as losing a child.
Grief and healing, not letting go, which is, I see where some people can see that, and how are you ever going to let go of your loved one if you can just see them all the time? And there's even there's an episode of Black Mirror. How many of you like Black Mirror? Great episode of Black Mirror where somebody orders their spouse essentially online, and it is a AI inside this clone of their loved one, and they begin living with them. Crazy episode. But that's sort of some of the implementations that we could see going forward. And again, this is, I want to be able to introduce this in a way of conversating with everybody here. Like I was saying earlier, you know, you guys have the experience here. You guys know about grief, the funeral directors among you especially, and you probably have way more insight than Silicon Valley ever will when it comes to incorporating this technology in grieving, healing efforts, in memorialization efforts. And that's where we've been getting most of our feedback. That's where we're going to continue getting our feedback. We want this technology implemented in our industry to come from our industry. If you don't like this technology, good. Say something. What don't you like? How do you think it should be incorporated? What are the best ways it could? Should we completely throw away the key, as Feynman was saying, and not use this technology for any good to make sure that it can't be used for any evil? This is sort of the conversation that I want being had. And it's very important that we do, because like I said, it's coming. A lot of it's here. I'm about to show you exactly how we interpret it and how it can be good. Here's perhaps a good way of using it, and maybe you guys will find this.
You know, if Superman helped the Fortress of Solitude, Superman can speak to his father, even though his father has long since passed away. Well, essentially what's happening there, Superman is having a nice fluid conversation with a recording of his father. Well, that very technology has arrived. What do you hope people learn most from your experiences? What I would like by legacy, by story, is I can go back to it. Because you mentioned did testimony that was developed by the University of Southern California's Shoah Foundation. That's the institute started by Steven Spielberg to help combat hate and violence, primarily by capturing stories of Holocaust survivors and help tell the stories in unique and compelling ways. Well, this certainly qualified. It may just look like the big TV's fun sideways on the Holocaust survivor telling a story, but what's happening here? You can sit down in front of him and just ask questions into this microphone, and he'll answers if he was sitting there in the flesh. Questions can be as basic as when were you born to deeper ones like what was the most horrific thing you ever experienced? Or do you ever feel like you want to get revenge? I thought that it went through worse. So I want injustice. Injustice is not revenge. Holocaust survivors are reaching in classrooms for a couple of generations now and telling their story and engaging with young people. And we realize that that opportunity is soon to be lost. And we wanted to try and capture that intimate moment which when young people have heard the story of a Holocaust survivor, they can ask their own questions about their lives and cause and consequences of their experiences. Now, if you're among those who likes the great making details on what's happening behind the scenes, how it's actually working, strap in. So what happens is you speak into a microphone, and the automatic speech recognition software picks up your words, turns that into text, and text is fed into a natural language processor, which looks at the string of words and find out what it is that you're talking about. And it goes and searches in the database of video clips, which have been turned into text themselves, and brings back the most appropriate video clip to answer the question that you're asking. Each survivor was interviewed for 5 days and asked about 1,000 questions, recorded by a sphere of cameras that captured every single angle, sound, and emotion. Back to the Superman part. If you're wondering whether maybe you'll be able to someday speak to loved ones who have passed on in this way, the Shoah Foundation says, yeah, an offshoot of the Institute called Story File was created pretty much to do exactly that. And then to your last question, yes, developers say they have future-proof this and capture the subjects in full 360. So that eventually, when the technology catches up, you will be able to walk around these subjects and experience them as full 3D.
So there's even aspects of that where you can see perhaps potentially your loved one in these virtual reality goggles, sort of like that first clip I showed you, maybe a little bit better way. But this technology is coming. That 3D motion capture stuff that they're using has actually already been overlapped. Now you can use a smartphone. AI will do the rest, and you sort of just give a sort of 3D video, and then it turns it into whatever you want. I've heard a lot about AI being incorporated into this stuff, to where the AI can learn your habits, learn how you might respond, and then respond for you in the same sense. And then maybe in the future, you could even talk to your grandfather after he's passed and be able to have a real stimulating conversation with him in virtual reality or even in a hologram. So I don't have much time left. So I want to go over just a few of the things that if you want to do the demo outside that you would see, or if you don't want to do the demo, this is sort of how we have tried to adapt a memorialization effort. Yes, ma'am.
So I guess for me, I can see both sides of it. It could be good for introducing the children who've never seen their grandparent to them. But my question becomes, who's going to feed this computer system or this thing the information and make sure that it's accurate? Because on one hand, you can create a situation of complicated grief by putting this out here for families. I never let go because I'm always seeing my loved ones, but my children get to meet them. But is the information that's going to be conveyed even accurate? Who determines what this thing says?
That's tough. Who do you think should? Because I'll be completely honest, I don't have an answer for you.
It's hard because if we're introducing this thing to our kids and it's our grandfathers who died 60 years ago, where are they going to get the accurate information for my children to ask the question and there to be a true, honest dialogue?
Right. Yeah, I see what you're saying. How are you gonna know if this is exactly how your grandfather was, or what if it's a complete misinterpretation of who he was, or maybe even manipulated misinterpretation of who he was, or who anybody was? It could be, this could be adapted for celebrities. Maybe your favorite celebrity, your favorite singer, or something passes away, and you want to attend their funeral in virtual reality. I mean, that's quite a great thing. Many singers have great impacts on the population, and you want to sort of show your respect and be able to show up to their funeral, but you obviously can't go to their real funeral, so you're able to do that in virtual reality. But then, yeah, exactly. What happens if the interpretation is wrong, or if it's lost and then recreated? Or there's so many questions here, and that's really what I am trying to open the floor to discussion. Yes, ma'am. So as far as this, like the state, like local governments, uh, that's something I'd ask you. Who should regulate this sort of stuff? That's easy to say, right? But then, you give the sort of regulatory authority to somebody, and, maybe they make decisions you don't like. Um, and that gets incorporated into the technology. I think, just personally, I don't have all the answers. Like I told you guys earlier, I want this to be an open conversation. I think this stuff is should be sort of left to a free market in a sense. Um, and the industries themselves need to be the regulators. Where do you put your dollar? How are you going to make sure that this stuff is right and exactly how you want? And that's why I'm trying to bring it to you guys here first. Everyone in here knows how the funeral industry works. They know how to implement care into the families that they serve. And all that stuff is important into making sure that we do the right thing here. And or maybe I'm wrong, and maybe the regulatory sort of agency should be, people with doctorates that understand grief and grieving, and they know how this stuff should be implemented. Tony?
What would concern me is how much would that dollar?
How much would you, what was the last word? Oh, pay?
Experience, and if there's no one to say whether or not you can have that experience.
Yeah, very good point. That right. That's an older video too, so the technology they're using is probably way more expensive than it would be now. So yeah, great point. Are only the most wealthy among us, at least for the beginning parts of this, going to be the only ones to do this? Of course, at implant recycling, that's not really how we do things. Everything from our processor to products we provide, it's all completely free of charge. If we get the metals back from you, that's the only revenue that we ask of you. Everything else we want to provide to you to help your services, how you communicate and interact with your families. That stuff would be an add-on. So if you're a recycling partner with us, the goggles, the virtual reality software, this sort of technology is something that we would give to you free of charge, and the funeral home would then decide how it's going to be incorporated and how families may use it in the future. But yeah, there's a lot of open questions here. A lot of people don't know the answers. And my main goal today, leaving you guys, is going to be, pick this conversation up. Biggest point here is that it's coming, and it's going to get here soon. And if we're not ready and at least talking about it and willing to put in the effort to find the right way to do this, and to help families that need to use or want to potentially use and incorporate this technology, I think that's going to be on us as an industry. But I promise you, we're going to do a better job in incorporating it than a Silicon Valley coder who doesn't know anything about our industry, doesn't know anything about grief, doesn't know anything about the families we serve, the people we talk to every day. We're going to do a much better job, and Rainbox is trying to do that. So I'm going to run through this really quick. essentially, there's three aspects of our memorialization effort in the virtual reality goggles. So, first, you go to a welcome center, family, friends gather, ceremonial space where you can witness a live cremation, and place for any sort of ceremonial activities, and a place for reflection of your loved one, where they can leave sort of pre-need things that they wanted to leave personally to their family or to particular loved ones, to reflect and visit upon later. Uh, so this is where you're going to meet up with everybody right before the ceremony, be able to have as close an interaction to as you can when you go to a normal funeral. They say funerals and weddings, that's when you see some of your family that you never see in, years, and then you get to see them at these occasions. Hopefully you could do something like that here, be able to have those personal conversations and be able to talk with one another. That's sort of a example of what a welcome center could look like. Of course, all of this is going to be completely customizable, as it would be. It's all digital, so it'd be up to you or the funeral home and how you make it. Same thing with the ceremonial space. This is completely customizable. A place that can be used, whatever your religion is, whatever your culture is, can be adapted to that setting, and then you'd be able to have your ceremony. Examples of some live cremation, different sort of settings. Oops.
So when you say live cremation, you got a camera in the retort?
Yeah, so it's sort of like the live streaming that we were talking about earlier. That's already taken a hold. A lot of people already do that if maybe they want to be able to attend but can't. Maybe they live out of state. That gives them the option to be able to witness it.
But it's generally in a ceremony, and you push the button, but you don't actually see the retort
Right.
inner.
Right.
Speak.
Yes, and it would be just like that. And it would simply be a part of the ceremony if you wanted it to or not. Like I said, it's all optional. If you wanted to have that experience, it's not like you're going inside with it. Although, that's another thing we could discuss. What if someone wanted to see that and wanted to do that digitally in some way? Should they be allowed to? Is this an option? No,
No, that will leave a lasting traumatic effect.
I agree with you. I'd take your advice on it.
That's a pretty ugly process that's best left not seen.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I wouldn't want to see it. Yeah. Right. So like being able to, you mean like being able to see the inside? Perhaps that'd be something I'd have to ask August about. He's the one that put that in there, but yeah, maybe after the process is complete, so you're not seeing like the process itself, but right as it's ending and you're opening it up, maybe that's the thing that's wanted. And I just I really want to keep in mind, like, there's plenty of different ways people do this, and it's the hard part about this is like people want this to be regulated in some sense, and perhaps it should be in certain places, but there may be cultures that think way differently than us, and want different aspects of the ceremony and the process to be used.
Kind of like any room.
Yeah. Yeah, how they put the body on the pyre, and you witness the cremation, so to speak. Yeah. So yeah, just like that. And there's so many different ways, and it doesn't even have to be cremation. We're mainly, that's where we come from implant recycling, that we deal with cremation on a regular basis. But even for a green burial or any sort of way that you want to dispose your loved one, this is a completely customizable thing that can apply to an infinite amount of scenarios and memorialization. Whether some people like it or some people don't, it comes down to an opinion thing. But I think we know, as far as grief and healing and dealing with that and how it impacts people, we know sort of how to implement this. And so if this is at your funeral home, you're probably not going to do the witnessing your live cremation. That's kind of crazy. and then people would more than likely be fine with that, and they'd still have an enjoyable experience and be able to do this. But that's just one aspect of it. Um, the memory space is probably the most gonna be the most impactful, especially on an individual level. Um, and it's really just a place of reflection to visit almost personally with your loved one. Not quite as personally as that video, but just a place that your loved one can almost manipulate as a sort of pre-need and be able to add photos, add audio remarks, videos, even to be able to uh, place in this sort of area where you're able to go and interact with the memories of your loved one. In the virtual reality, we have the gentleman who passed away is has a video of him playing baseball with his son. There's a video of him and his wife getting married and saying their vows. So there's endless possibilities and personalization that you can make when it comes to the memory space. And we sort of modeled the main demo after Avatar. It's supposed to just be a peaceful sort of environment, something that isn't too jarring and is a nice sort of ease into the situation. But of course, customizable. You can make literally whatever you want. So we have the actual app for Rainbox VR dropping in December. This will be a sort of demo app where you're actually able to go in if you have virtual reality goggles and be able to mess with some of these settings and be able to create your own sort of areas. And there's even new technology now in that commercial, Tony, where he takes the phone and scans a room. You could do your old childhood home, be able to scan that, recreate it in some way, and that can be a part of the memorialization ceremonial space or however you want to implement it.
How for funeral services part of this? It's like, no.
In December, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Good question. To my knowledge, yes. Yeah, to my knowledge, yes. I mean, there are companies that do similar things. Obviously, the one in Japan that we saw, it's doing something like it, making a memorialization effort. I'm sure there's people that have either done it on their own time, genius programmers that maybe did it for their grandfather or something like that. But yeah, as far as I know, this is what we're doing. And main point again of this is I'm gathering as many opinions, ideas. I'll have my contact information if you think of something later, or if you have ideas that you think should be implemented in it. Now's the time. Now's the time to have the conversations. Now's the time to speak up. Tony, what's up? Not quite. So the demo is sort of made to sort of be that test drive, I believe. So this will give anybody with with any goggles the ability to go in there and sort of customize and see how the app works, even just to give us an idea of how this could drop and how people can programmers or developers can come in with us and be able to make adjustments and get this in a working condition where it could be something viable to use. No, no, we don't. No, we don't. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, you're probably right. And I'd love for you to see the demo and sort of see how you feel as to where it's at, technologically speaking, I guess, to see if it's even ready for the demo phase. Because where it's at, its resolution's pretty good and the idea is there, but of course we're gonna want to move it forward and being able to make it better and better and better. And as the technology and new goggles come out, that'll help too. But yeah, getting control groups, great idea. Anybody else? Ceremonial spaces. we agree with you guys. Whatever the funeral industry is leaning towards, and of course, there's bound to be many opinions even within our industry. But the general consensus is, we don't want this to harm families in any way. We want this to make a difference in a positive light, to bring back, not lose that human connection, to even boost it in some way, to realize maybe while you're in there, like, this is cool, but I'd really love to be there. And maybe that helps in getting humans together and be able to actually have traditional ceremonies. So gauge alongside the perspective of people who can make this technology work correctly. Of course, this is some complicated technology, and while we can garner all the opinions that we can inside of our industry, we'll always need people that know how this technology works to help us be able to make it exactly how we want it to be. So these are 3 points, sort of just to close. I know I'm way over my time. But making funerals more convenient so that people can have an immersive experience from their own living room and can easily return to the deceased's memory space for digital afterlife events that build a lasting memory into eternity. So that's a very strong concept, to be able to see your loved one again and be able to have those memories at your disposal always digitally, and be able to visit them anytime you're feeling down or you remember your loved one and you just want to hear their voice again or see their face again in a way that's better than just looking at a picture. We should make the effort to reduce our carbon footprint, whether it's enforced through regulations or not. Our goal is to provide products and services that accomplish just that, while reducing your costs. And, that's the huge thing there. Was it Darren, I believe, who said people are willing to do what is environmentally friendly more than roughly 90%, but it's really the cost, and so there are sort of other factors that are preventing them from doing so. So once we can do that, it'll help. Utilizing emerging technologies to empower our families to do everything they could ever imagine during, before, and after the loss of a loved one, and a few things they've never thought to be possible. So really, that's everything. And again, I just want to stress, we're not trying to take away traditional ceremonies. It's very important that those stay alive and perhaps even become boosted by this sort of stuff. But we want this to be able to be a supplement for people that can grieve in a different way. And especially my generation and younger is going to grow up with this technology. They won't know anything other than it. And it's important that we incorporate it in the right way. I have a video. Am I way over my time? I have one last video of the actual thing. Okay, good. This is mainly what this is going to be. And, if you have motion sickness or something like that, you may not want to use the virtual reality goggles, at least as they exist now. So this is sort of what we've been working on in the demo that we have going forward.
Mr. Jason Lee, you are scheduled to attend the cremation ceremony. Mr. Stephen Reed from Rainbox. You are requested to put on your headset and proceed to the Welcome Center, where you will be greeted by a receptionist who will guide you to the service. Welcome to Rainbox. I am Immersive, your AI assistant. I am deeply sorry for your loss. Let me direct you to the ceremonial space. After that, the group will visit the memory space to interact with Mr. Stephen Green's memories.
So these gazebos that you're sort of going through here, you'll have an audio attached of your loved one, sort of describing the memories and being able to say whatever they want to you in that moment.
You remember my point when we went fishing for the first time. I'm trying to save you on a few along the way. But I'll always be more proud of memories to create.
So you can imagine that in a full 360 experience, something in the goggles is super immersive, as if you're, right there, and something you can always go back to if you're ever missing your loved one. So like I said, here's some of my contact information. If any of you do have strong opinions and want to get in touch with me or August, who, like I said, sort of the pioneer of this whole thing, we'd love to hear it. That's really why I'm here, and your opinions literally mean the world to us. We couldn't have gotten as far as we did without learning how the industry is learning and understanding how this technology works and how it should be implemented. So with that, I leave you. Thank you so much. It's my first presentation since college, so I know I didn't do the best. If you want to see it, please feel free. It is really cool. And hopefully I'll see you in soon. Thanks.